Welcome. Lockdown hobby time. Day 34. Not consecutive, but still day 34. And today, what have we got here? We've got these rather hideous butchers. Of course, the Nightstalkers. Let's get them into focus range. There we go. Look at that. Lovely, pinky, purpley goodness. And we're going to be working on those today. But not only that, there was a special delivery awaiting me this morning. And here it is. So, not just one pack of chickens, not just 2 packs of chickens, in fact, and not even 3 packs of chickens, but 3 packs of chickens and piggies. These are, of course, from Bad Squiddo Games from the last Kickstarter, which has arrived. And I'm going to open these suckers now, actually, because it's chickens, and I want to look at them. 3 packs, because I was thinking that these would be perfect for my undead Rordian army as some kind of swarm. Depending which army I'm running them as, I could use them as different things. But they will be painted as undead ghost chickens, in case you were wondering. So they match the theme of the army, because I've already got some ghostly chicken riders. So let's get them right up in the camera. What's the optimum focus range for a chicken? Let's find out. Oh, it was looking good there. You know, I could just put something behind it. Let's put the lid of the wet pallet behind it, so you can have a full, admiring glance of these magnificent birds. Come on. Focus on the chicken. I will give it no choice. It's rejecting my advances here. You know what? I'll just have to take some pictures of them. So, we've got some medium-sized chickens here. A big fat chicken on there. Look at the size of that beast. And then some teeny tiny little chickens as well. So I've got 3 of these packs, which should be enough to make, let's see, so you can have the swarms and regiments or hordes, and I think 5 to a base is going to be enough. So obviously I've got 30, I'll be able to make a horde. And for the Empire of Dust they have a swarm, the Undead have a swarm. I don't think League of Rordia have a swarm, but the new Halflings might have chicken swarms, and if they don't I'll be sorely disappointed. So chickens, lots of them, 2 more packs of those, and the piggies as well. And I have no idea what I'm going to do with these, but I didn't need any more chickens, and I forgot what I initially backed the Kickstarter for. I forgot which miniatures I originally planned to get. So I thought, you know what, why not get some pigs as well? Because often there's a bit of a gap between the end of a Kickstarter and the Pledge Manager coming out. And in that time, I've obviously moved on to different projects, and I have different wants for my miniatures during that time. So piggies it is, and I'll find something nice for them. They'll be used somehow, so get those back in the bag for now. We've got Steve in the chat currently. I wonder if we're going to have a packed house tonight once everyone is actually aware that this is going on. So I'm going to move the chickens out of the way. I will maybe clip them off the sprue here later on, but for now let's just put them all to one side, and I've got some painting to do. So I'm going to be working on, what do I want to do first? Do I want to put a purple wash all over this gigantic beastie? I'm tempted. You can see I've dry brushed it all in white, lightly. It'll just give me a good starting point for the details, like the faces. Once I've put the wash over, I'll be able to pick everything out a bit better and see where all the details are, because there's going to be more painting steps after the wash. So I think that will be next. So we don't need the wet palette for this, which means that the butchers can sit on top of the wet palette for a minute. Okay, so I'm going to be using Druki or Drukai Violet, the Citadel shade, whose label is actually visible while in the Citadel paint holder, which can't be said for the contrast paints. Disgraceful, I know. So we're going to shake up this bad boy, and then we're going to splatter it all over most of this model. Not the clothing, because that's not going to be purple, but all the skin and the flesh, and then the tentacles as well, and whatever I decide is going to be a different colour later on, I'll just paint over. But for now, it's all going to be nice and purple. However, I'm going to put up some kind of blast shield between the splatter zone and the PC monitor, because otherwise it's going to get purple wash all over it, and that would be bad. So let's see, what have we got here? We've got a nice big box right here, and let's see if I can balance this somewhere in the optimal splat zone. It'll stop me being able to see half the monitor, but I'm not concerned about that right now because there's nothing important on this monitor. All my stream stuff is on the other one. So that's right, I'm modernising my setup. Not only have I got 2 monitors, I've also ordered one of those fancy pants microphone arms, so that my good microphone will be able to endangle itself somewhere down in this sort of area. So I won't have to use my webcam microphone while doing these streams for a start, which is obviously right here in the webcam, because my good microphone is perched on top of the desk at the moment, and when I'm doing anything like streaming Vermintide or the Andean Rem Show, that kind of thing, or battle reports for that matter, the microphone is seated right here, right in the middle of the painting zone, which obviously it can't occupy that space while I'm actually painting. So the microphone arm and its ability to endangle a microphone within range is going to be pretty sweet. So speaking of entanglement, it's time to paint some tentacles. Let's get washing. Selecting the right brush for the job. We want a nice big fat juicy one because this is a huge surface area we're painting here. So I'm thinking this one is juicy enough. I'm just going to adjust the blast shield a bit here. There we go. You can usually tell where the danger zone is because every now and then I'll see a little speck on the monitor and I'll have to go in and fix that. So let's see what's going to be the best way to do this. I think we'll start with a leg at a time, because one thing you don't want to do is just haphazardly splatter the whole model and then find that half of it's somewhat dry when you get back to the part next to it, and then you accidentally pick up some of the half-dry wash and you ruin it, you get weird tide marks going on. So just better to concentrate on one area at a time. So I'll do the feet, then the whole thigh/knee region, then the arms, then the torso and the tentacles, I think. Nice systematic way of doing it. So where do I want this? I did put the butchers up there, but I think some of them are going to have to move already because I want to put the wash up here so I can access it with my right hand. Graham in the chat. What's everyone else working on tonight? Okay, there goes. Start with the feet. I'm not bothered how dark this turns out because there are going to be lots more painting layers after this, I think. Unless it somehow just looks amazing after one coat of wash. But I think it's going to require much, much more. I'm leaving the exact amount of layers of paint that are going to go onto this model up in the air because it's very experimental. Just figuring out what to do as I'm going along with this one, as was the case with the Dread Fiends as well, which are complete now, and you will have seen before. And just in case anyone hasn't, I will whip them out a bit later. So, onto the thigh and the face, which I've named Matt Damon there. Does look a lot like him. Just adjusting this box, it looked like it was about to fall for a second. Could be my imagination. There we go. Maybe there's a gap in the market for a miniature painting blast shield. Because I can't be the only person that paints right in front of their computer monitor. It must be quite a common thing. That's where all the entertainment is. So maybe a product designed, a see-through shield you can put up in front of your monitor while you're painting. Nicely branded. Obviously I can't do it now because I've just given away that $1 million idea live on the internet in true Remington fashion. Someone will be stealing that and releasing one shortly. Maybe there's a business opportunity there. Andy's Painting Accessories. Onto the other leg. Grimrick is a greater demon of malice that needs finishing. I would like to see that. That actually sounds interesting to me. I'm going to predict a wild prediction that Steve is working on orcs or a sparrow. Or both at the same time. Got to get the inside of the thigh, that's always the most important part. Well, actually it's not because you're never going to see it. But you can't neglect it either. Because you never know, someone might be walking past the Shadow Hulk and get a glimpse up there and realise it's not painted, and then their opinion of my army will forever be tainted. Yeah, there could be a very short person walking next to the table, or someone crouching to tie their shoelace, and they accidentally see up the skirt of the Shadow Hulk and realise that there's no paint under there. But there is, because I'm giving it extra special attention. Okay, let's start on the dragon head now. I don't know how much of this you can actually see, because it's so big it's difficult to actually position the model anywhere in camera shot. Graham says it's from a Spanish company, Nightmare Miniatures. I'll have to have a look at that, because that sounds like something interesting. I always liked the Greater Demon miniatures, even the old ones that weren't that big. In fact, I prefer some of the old ones to the new ones. That might be a topic for the Andean Realm Show. Everyone's favourite Greater Demons. I might post that in the Andean Realm Show Facebook group later on and let people have their say, and then we can discuss it tomorrow. I really like the Bloodthirster that had more of a humanoid face rather than kind of the animal face that it gained later on. What year would that have been? Probably about 2000. That era of Bloodthirster. I'm sure it was all metal, because everything was back then. But I never owned one, even though I did have some of the other nice Chaos thingies. I had Arbel the Undefeated, and he's obviously the favourite of Khorne at that time. In my Chaos Warriors army, which on the one hand I would like to still own, but on the other hand I don't think they were that well painted. It was mostly just dry brushed silver over black, and that was about the extent of it. So this washing process is actually made easier by the design of the miniature, because you've got skin areas that are broken up by ropes and shields and that kind of thing. So you can concentrate on one area at a time without worrying about it drying up. So for example, there's a rope running down the body there, and I can just paint on this side of it for now and get all the tentacles before I move on to the other arm and the other side of the body. I'm doing the pink bits as well. And we'll see how they look when they've got the wash dried on them. Remember, I can paint over all of this either with more dry brushing or just straight up paint application. I can see splatters of this all over the place, so I'm glad I've got that blast shield in place. Obviously a very runny, wet paint like this that's flicking off all the little details. It's going to go everywhere, so precautions must be taken. With these kind of washes, it's difficult to judge whether you like the look of it until it's completely dry. Because wet, they sometimes look vastly different. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. So you just can't judge prematurely. So let's do the centre of the back now. And the little face that's on there. And the arms that go with it, of course, they're kind of crossed, judging you. Okay, onto this side of the torso now. Steve had to pop out and wants to know what he's missed. Well, you missed that I predicted you're working on orcs or sparrows. Got Brad in the chat. Let's check out that company, Graham, because I'm a fan of some of the old school style miniatures. My tastes in miniatures vary wildly. Sometimes I really appreciate the new stuff that's got really sleek, intelligent design gone into it. But then I also like some of the old, really crudely made, really weird looking stuff. It's not always just nostalgia either. It is a genuine, legitimate aesthetic choice, I think, that can be made. Okay, have I done everything? I don't expect this to be like magic, this stage. But I'm hoping it gives me a nice base to work from, and it'll highlight, well, when I say highlight, it'll actually do the opposite, but it'll show me where all the recesses are, and where I can focus paint. Just trying to pick out anywhere that I might have not got yet. Obviously, it's so multi-dimensional, this monstrosity that I've made. I'm always going to miss something the first go round. Bound to be something I haven't touched sufficiently. I haven't even taken the lid off the water pot. Steve says, how did you guess? Well, I do have some limited psychic powers, and I used them to determine that they're probably working on orcs, and probably some kind of anthropomorphic creature as well. Just a hunch. There's a Quasimodo joke in there somewhere. Okay, let's put a lid on it. Lid on the Drukai Violet. And we can put that down now. We can also remove this rather unattractive blast shield, and I can see the rest of my monitor again. And that goes away. Okay, so as I was looking at the moment, you can see that more detail is becoming visible now, which is nice. There's going to be a lot more to do on this guy, though. Very complicated, and I've made it more difficult for myself with the amount of ridiculous work that I put into building it. But that's what I like doing. I like building weird stuff. So, for anyone who hasn't seen the Dread Fiends, I'll whip those out now. So here they are. This is the kind of look I'm going for with the Nighstalkers. Pinky, purpley, horrifying, gribbly goodness. So next we're going to be doing some work on the butchers. There's going to be some dry brushing going on here, some sweet, sweet, sweet dry brushing. The #1 painting technique for people that like to paint miniatures fast, or at least it was until contrast paints came out and kind of dethroned dry brushing a bit. Although using contrast paints in conjunction with dry brushing, which is what I'm doing here. Genius level move, who am I to say? Okay, so the colour on these guys. How do I feel about it? Do I think that dry brushing alone will be sufficient to carry them to the next level? I could make them just way more pinky than these guys. These guys are already quite pink, but they've also got deeper colours in there as well. And what did I do with these? So with these guys I did actually start off with the same contrast, but then I painted all the raised areas first with this unknown paint that doesn't have its name on it before the dry brushing stage, and then the dry brushing was done with pink and then with white. So if I bypass this stage entirely, how will that look? They should end up looking more pinky in theory. But that's just in theory, of course. Or do I just want them to be the same colour as the Dread Fiends? Decisions, decisions. You know what, I could just pick out the raised areas and do them exactly the same way that I did the Dread Fiends. I know it looks good, and why not do another unit that way? There's only so many ways to paint the pinks and the purples, so some units are going to look the same. And I'm not going to do their hair in this green colour, so that's going to be something that's different. So let's do that. And then the parts that are wrapped around the legs of these guys, which are more purpley than pink, I could use that to do the head tentacles, things like that. Let's do it. Do it. So cracking open the wet palette. And we're going to use hexed lichen or lichen, however you want to pronounce it. But it's a nice purpley colour and it's hexed. That's all you need to know. The bottle, of course, is not hexed. The bottle is perfectly rounded, unlike some of the other paint pots I've got here, which are in fact hexed. Steve is just putting the finishing touches to his Sparrow Warrior base, plus just done the last bit of painting my Gnoll Harpies for my herd and putting together more Orc Axe. Knoll harpies. Is that some kind of crossbred creature? That would be interesting to see. Oh, is that why you wanted that harpy from whichever game it's from? Is it Hellboy? That would make sense. Okay, shaking up the paint. Vigorously shaking. And a generous splodge onto the palette. This is actually the wrong one. But it's the wet palette, so it doesn't matter. That one is going to be for the tentacles. So this is going to be for the skin. This is the one without a name. So we're going to pour that one out now as well. The nameless paint. So let's see here. Which brush do we want? I've been using this one a lot lately for this kind of, not tiny detail, but somewhat reasonable detail. So let's stick with this one and see how it goes. If it's not good enough, we can always tag out. So let's dive in head first. Raised areas. I don't have to cover everything though, because these are bizarre creatures that can have strange patterns or strange coloration on their skin. They are the stuff of nightmares, so they don't have to be perfectly aesthetically pleasing. In fact, they shouldn't be at all. And this step isn't going to be very long, because the detail on these models is actually quite thick and plump and juicy. Quite bold, deep detailing, which is nice for this step, because it means I'm unlikely to accidentally touch any of the wrong crevices. Steve says, my herd army is wolf canine based, hence the gnolls. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Steve is one of those people who's a bit of a prolific hobbyist at the moment, I think, but tends to make his armies interesting. Painted quickly, but in an interesting way, which is the kind of thing I'm trying to do with my Nightstalkers. I don't want to spend untold hours painting each individual scarecrow when I get round to them. I just want the army to be interesting and painted in quick order. Unlike the Abyssal Dwarves that I just poured a vast amount of time into because I wanted them to be the undisputed best army I'd ever done. And I think the colour scheme I picked for them was suitable for that. The Nightstalkers, I think I just want to get them done faster. you see me almost go for the wrong paint there? That would have been hilarious. Okay, looking very bold and pinky here. I think they're going to look pretty damn cool. Still need to finalise a base design for this army. I could end up with an entire painted army and no bases for them. At this rate. Almost finished with this colour on this guy. And after this, it'll be dry brushing as the next step. Then painting the weapons, and I'm going to put rust effects on the weapons actually. That's one thing that I'm going to put a bit more time into, because it's not a very difficult step. It's just an extra one. So we're going to have nice rusty hardware. And then obviously there's teeth and the inside of the mouth and all that good stuff. And then green slime coming out of the mouth. I'm not going to paint those big tentacles coming out the back of his head because they're going to be in a different colour. So that's pretty much the only part I'm going to leave. Also, this kind of weird, like a fur loincloth they seem to be wearing. I'm not sure what colour to do that. Whether I should just do it this colour so it doesn't stand out too much, or paint it some other way. I think I might just leave that for the dry brush without this deeper pink being applied to it, so it'll be, in theory, lighter than the rest of the model, but only subtly so. And then they have got fingernails as well, which I will be picking out at some point. Okay. You will focus on this hideous monster. There you go. So it's looking quite dirty at the moment. That pink is very strong. But when the dry brushing is on there, It's going to look quite a bit different, I think. So he says, you got it, quick armies for me, then spend a bit more time on stuff like burrows and badgers. Yeah, small skirmish games. I can understand people spending a lot of time on those where there's not many miniatures to get through. Ben says, quick draw armies are where it's at. I found it helps to shore up the lead pile quite a bit. If you keep finding excuses to have model A hang out with model Z. Yeah, if you've got a huge pile of miniatures, then finding a way to get them done quickly is always helpful, because you're never going to stop buying them, are you? So you've got to have some way to get through the pile. So I'm going to compare with my eyeballs these two miniatures now and decide if I'm happy with how it looks. And I think I am, because this does have some lighter parts left visible as well. I think it just adds to the weirdness of the skin tone. So, one down. Who's next? Let's go for this guy. It's going to start off with the nipples. These are very nice miniatures, but not much variety of pose with these ones. I'm not sure if you can get different sets of them that have others, but these all came from a series of Vanguard starter sets, so they're all going to be the same. So I chopped off some of the weapons, mildly reposed some of the arms, nothing too crazy. Obviously I've got enough conversion work going on in this army, so not everything needs to have excessive fiddleage done with it. Billy says, a nipple on a Nightstalker Butcher would imply the existence of a baby Nightstalker Butcher, which sounds adorable. Potentially. It depends. I haven't looked into the lore of the Nightstalkers too much. If they're just fathomed out of people's nightmares, and you just perceive this hideous creature across from you, based on your worst fears, that would be one thing. Or are they a bit more substantial than that? We've got Mr. Elstonation in the chat. Good evening. I would say Mr. Elstonation is a pretty reasonable painter himself. Perhaps not quite up to my standard, but maybe he'll get there one day with enough work. These butchers are incredibly muscular. Wherever they're from, whatever shadowy lands they come from. They must have some pretty good exercise equipment. Steve says a butcher baby would be very scary, and now you've got me wanting to actually create a unit of baby butchers. Not sure how I would go about that. Elf Nation says thank you. Well, you're welcome. If you want to up your painting game, I would suggest spending less time on Space Marines and more time on real miniatures. That would be my advice. I offer the same advice to Mr. Bazooka as well. Don't think he's here at the moment, oddly enough. But he needs to lay off the Space Marines. I don't think this technique I'm using on these miniatures is really textbook in any way. It was just kind of see what happens as I go along, and then it just happened to look nice. So I thought, well, let's just do more this way. Probably a simpler way of achieving a similar result. But once I've achieved it on one miniature, I want to kind of recreate it the same way, rather than messing around with something different. At least on this first unit, I want to get these ones in the can, as it were. I doubt I'll be doing this on the scarecrows because there's too many of them and take too long. So there's just going to be contrast and dry brush on those, I think. So I may even do them a slightly different colour. Still going to be lots of purpley, pinky goodness going on, so don't worry about that. When I finish this colour on the next 3 of them, then I'm going to have a look at some chickens, for anyone who's interested in that kind of thing. Who isn't, though, really? Okay, 2 down. 3rd one coming up. What colour do you think you're going to paint the metals in? Standard metallics or nightmarish hues? Well, I'm thinking that they're going to be dark silver with rust. Because rust is going to show up better on silver than it would do on, I think, bronze or something like that. Elf Nation. Ordered my Kings of War army yesterday. Excellent. Which one is it? That's an important factor as well. Steve, I agree, everyone needs to lay off the Space Marines. I'll let you off if it's Dark Angels, though, because they are very cool looking and they have a lot of variety with the different wings. So if it's Dark Angels, cool. If it's not Dark Angels, bleh. Northern Alliance, you say? Good choice, they're very cool looking. I think you'll do a very good job on those, actually. Got a lot of texture to work with on them. I'm hoping to see some nice beast fur gradients from you. They do look fun to paint. I think the Nighstalkers and the Northern Alliance are pretty interesting, and I think good choices for the starter box, because they can be painted very simply. Both of them lend themselves to washes and or dry brushing, I think. The Northern Alliance have got lots of fur, which is of course perfect for dry brushing. The Nighstalkers are kind of hideous otherworldly creatures, so washes, and if it looks weird, that's fine because they're supposed to be that way. So I think that they'd both be good as beginner armies, but they are also really nice models and could lend themselves very well to more advanced painting techniques as well. There are some models, I think, in the Kings of War range that don't lend themselves very well to top-notch painting. The Goblin Infantry, for example, that is until the new Goblin Infantry hits the shelves, because that looks very nice from what I've seen. But some of the others, some of the older the miniatures aren't that great. It's weird though, because the zombies, the Mantic zombies, still hold up very well, and they're one of the oldest kits. But there are a few things that aren't that great that are being phased out and replaced. I've been very impressed with all the recent stuff from Mantic. Definitely up to their game, and their miniatures actually stand alongside other companies' ranges now. In the old days, it was more of a case of it would be the exception when a Mantic kit looked really good next to everyone else's kits, like the zombies. I always thought looked better than GW zombies. But nowadays, whenever Mantic releases something, it's like, hey, look, they've just improved again. The Hellfane, obviously, currently the pinnacle, I think. But I wouldn't be surprised if they managed to top that soon. I'm not even being paid to say that. I did buy my own Hellfane. I was not sent that. Although, if anyone from Mantic is listening and wants to offer me another Hellfane, for some reason, On the topic of Hellvanes, if anyone wants to pay me a huge sum of money to paint them a Hellvane in the same style as mine, that would be fun as well. It would have to be a huge sum though. See, I can use my celebrity status to put all the other commission painters out of business and just take over. The problem is that I would paint so slowly that there would be riots outside my house, I think. I'm sure a lot of people would have these guys done by now. Even starting from the point I was at today, would have had these guys finished. But I'm not that fast. Brad has always felt there is something off about having robes and hoods on top of power armor. Well, I can understand it for ceremonial purposes, but I'm not sure about it in battle. It does look cool. I'm not sure how practical it actually is. What do you think about the proposed Goblin and Ratkin starter, 2 Horde armies in a starter? Interesting choice if that's happening. You normally get 2 vastly different forces in starter sets. I'd be interested to hear the thoughts behind it, rather than immediately saying it sounds like a terrible or an amazing idea. And goblins aren't always a horde army. They certainly can be. But the actual Goblin Infantry, in last edition I didn't use a huge amount of them. Obviously I was more drawn to the trolls and the war machines and the cavalry. Okay, 3 down. Next. Elston says, Spud convinced me, so we're both building and painting our armies at the same time. Well, I predict that yours will be finished faster than Spud's. That's my prediction right now. It might have something to do with the fact that you're a painting beast. People blink and you've churned out another Space Marine Legion. Although Spud does have the advantage because he already started on his... I don't know if he started painting any of them yet. But of course he's already painted some of the Vanguard stuff, which is usable in the army. So he's got a bit of a head start there. And he was also feverishly assembling the army the other night. I think he wore his fingers down to the bone doing that. Hopefully when the 2 of you have got your armies done, and when the whole worldwide pandemic situation has calmed down, then you'll be hitting up the tournament scene. So I can crush you. He says the slasher models are ace as well as both the winged and goblin one. The slashers are very cool looking. My only issue that I've had with the slashers, just from looking at them, I don't actually own one, is they seem very long. And I have issues with models that stick out too far from their base. Including the Hellfane, actually, although obviously that's an amazing model and I would still use it. It's just annoying because a lot of the time when it gets into combat you're going to have to turn it sideways so it'll actually fit because its nose is so pointy and sticks out almost half the length of its base again in front. One thing GW do well in their design seems to be when they've got a really huge miniature, they'll build it upwards so it's really tall rather than just outwards. If you look at things like the current Bloodthirster and Nagash and so on, they're really big, lots of mass, but it's upwards, so they don't need a base that fills half the table. It can be annoying to transport. Elston says, this is true, I've got a bit of catching up to do, might do a tournament, but if not, we'll come up north for a day of games. Yeah, there's lots of Kings of War action all over the country. Plenty of tournaments were happening before the lockdown. The north is quite a hotbed of Kings of War activity, but there's also a fair bit going on in the south as well. I hope that the influx of new players doesn't dry up because of the lockdown. Because the first few Kings of War tournaments of this edition, there was a lot of new players there. And hopefully this hasn't curtailed their interest. So I would hope that they're actually away diligently working on their armies, rather than having to take unpainted armies because they were new to the game and didn't have time to finish them yet. Hopefully, any free time that some of those people have had, they'll be using it, getting their armies nicely painted, ready to re-enter the scene. Not too nice though, because I do want to win some painting awards. It's going to be very interesting going to the first tournaments that are permitted whenever the country is opened back up again, when it's safe to do so. I imagine it won't be for a little while yet, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of new armies out there. I mean, I could, if I put my mind to it, I could definitely get this Nightstalker army finished in time for the reopening of the tournament scene, because I can't see it happening anytime imminently. But I've also got the Abyssal Dwarves, who've got some nice fancy new units now that I want to take to tournaments. So I might have to alternate. That's not to mention all the other armies that I've got that need some attention in this edition as well. Goblins, Rordia, the new Halfling rules are going to be coming out, so I can actually have a full Halfling army instead of just using the partly human League of Rordia list. There's going to be a lot of competition for my attention. So hopefully plenty of tournaments are put on when it's safe. So a lot of tournaments have just been postponed, so they'll all be kind of fighting over those slots at gaming centres when the time comes. Okay, next. Brad says, have you known anyone to show up to a tournament not knowing how to play the game? Yes. Many times. Not just in Kings of War. I think with Relics, which was the first tournament game that I started attending, the first tournament I went to, I barely knew the rules at all. And there were at least one or two other people at that tournament in the same boat as me. And I learned how to play that game at tournaments. And then with Kings of War, I hadn't played that much before going to my first tournament. So that's another one where I mostly learned the rules from tournaments. I'd only played a limited number of games before then, and usually, before attending tournaments, you tend to have just a small group of people that you play against, sometimes even just one person. So you can get into bad habits occasionally. And obviously, there's only the two of you there, so no one's going to correct it if you both think that rule is correct. But when you go to a tournament, you find out that certain things you were doing were wrong, because you're exposed to a lot more people there who have different interpretations of the rules. And then you figure out which one's correct. So I definitely recommend going to a tournament, even if you're not that familiar with the game system. In Kings of War, I've definitely played against at least a couple of people who didn't know too much about it going in. It's a good way to start learning. You're going to be seeing lots of different armies. If you only have your own little group of people that you play with, then you tend to see the same armies over and over again. At tournaments, there's much more variety. In Kings of War, it seems to be that there's no particular armies that get taken way more than everything else. There are a couple that you don't see much of, but you don't turn up somewhere and see 10 of the same army out of 20 players. That just doesn't happen. So either it's balanced enough, or all the armies are just so cool that enough people like them. And I would say it's pretty well balanced for a tournament game. I've never thought that one army was outrageously stronger than the rest. Even in last edition, there were some armies that seemed a little bit weaker, but in the right hands, they still could do well. It's not a case of if you pick this army, you are guaranteed to lose, or if you take this army, you're guaranteed to do well. Steve says, I had 15 tournaments booked, earmarked, ready to play for each of my armies for this year before the play kit. That's very unfortunate. The one plus side to the tournament scene being paused for this year is that I'm currently in second place on the Kings of War Masters rankings. So if it just ends there for the year, that's fine by me. And currently best in race for Abyssal Dwarves as well. So I'll also take that. Although there is one problem with the Kings of War Masters rankings at the moment, and that's the last tournament I went to before the lockdown came in. There's a mistake in there which has me positioned lower than I actually should be. It doesn't affect my position on the leaderboard, but one of the games that I won was put down as a loss. So I'm sure that'll be corrected at some point. There are slightly more important things going on in the world now than correcting leaderboards. So almost finish this guy, and then we're going to clip out some chickens, and I'll tell you what the plan is for those in a minute. I will warn you, Mr. Elston. Spud has been seeking my Abyssal Dwarf advice, my expert input. So you may not have much chance against him if he's learning from the undisputed king of the Abyssal Dwarves right now. You may want to just give up. I think this guy is done. Okay, time to deal with some chickens. Let's soap down this brush a bit. Get it nice and wet and moist. He says, I was 54th before Franticon, but it didn't go well at that event, so probably dropped down quite a bit. Well, not everyone can be top tier, I'm afraid. I did, on my Facebook memories, it did pop up the first place trophy from Ultibash last May, which is currently the only Kings of War tournament that I've won. Plenty of second and third places, but that's the only one I actually won. So obviously that was a momentous occasion. So we'll put the lid back on the wet pallet. And move these guys out of the way so I can get the chickens out on the cutting mat. So I'm going to build these in 2 swarm regiment bases and paint them up to match my undead Rordians. I think I've already got the bases. I'll have to check. So I think because I want 15 per regiment, I've got 3 big fat chickens. So one of them is going to have 2 fatties, and one of them will only get 1. But I can even out based on the size of all the other chickens as well. Now, have I got a project box to be clipping these out into? Yeah, I'll just use the box they came in, I think. Or will I? No, that might be handy actually, in case I need to send anybody a parcel in a tiny box. Let's see what I've got around here. Oh, here's an empty box. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to clip out some chickens into here. Tiny, wonderful resin chickens from Bad Squiddo Games from the last Kickstarter. They are tiny, some of them, so I don't want them flapping away and getting lost in the carpet. So some of them are sat down, some of them are standing. But they're going to be ghost chickens anyway, so I imagine it doesn't matter how static any of them look, because they can just float and teleport around if they're ghosts, can't they? There are other chicken-based accessories you can get as well. Various bits of farming or farm paraphernalia. Same goes for the pigs. You can get accessories for them as well. I haven't added anything to my undead League of Rordia army for a while now. But the fact that I heard there was going to be a full Kings of War halfling list on the horizon definitely inspired me to start thinking about that army again. And I also used them as Empire of Dust, you may recall, in some battle reports a few months ago. So there's the option of running them as Empire of Dust, Undead, or whatever ends up in the new halfling list. Either way, there's going to be options for swarms in at least a couple of those lists. So, big old box of chickens. Colonel Sanders would be proud. I don't think the piggies are actually attached to anything, but let's have a look. I think they're all loose. Which they are. A very large pig there, for that beast. I think some of them are actually supposed to be on top of each other. Because one of them has got a little flat bit on its back, or is there something else that goes on its back? Let's see. Oh, I know, it's upside down, that's why. You're supposed to have this one lying on its back, rolling around in the mud. That's why. I get it. Okay, so we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 little piggies. No idea what to do with them. I'm sure I could make some kind of swarm out of them as well. But obviously I've got more chickens than I have those. So, let's have a good look at the chickens. How are we going to do this? We want some nice, sweet focus action on these chickens. Let's see. Tried the lid of the wet palette and that wasn't working. Let's just stick my hand behind this chicken and let you admire its clucking goodness. Look at that. Look how chickeny it is. So that's one of the big fat chickens. There are some medium-sized chickens, standing very proud there. Don't you dare lose focus on that. There we go. And there's also a lot of little chickens in a variety of styles as well. So, difficult to grip. Is it even going to focus on this tiny thing? Let's see. Oh, you know you want to. Close enough. There you go. Look at that. Very nice. And the piggies. Radbat, I want 20 fat chickens. Well, that's going to be a problem because there's only 3 really fat chickens. The rest of them may grow up to be plump, juicy, succulent, tender, finger-licking, good pieces of poultry, but there's only 3 as represented in this range at the moment, with the 3 packs that I bought. We have got piggies as well. Come on, focus on the piggy. You know you want to. Do it. Oh, we almost had it there for a second. Do it. Oh, that was the sweet spot. Where was it? This is riveting entertainment, isn't it? Trying to gently... Oh, we had it. Well, you can just pause it at that exact moment after the video if you want a good look at this piggy. Maybe that one's bad luck. Let's try one of the smaller piggies. Okay. Oh, there we go. Temporarily focused on it. How can it not focus? My hand is the only thing there. And it's touching it. Oh. It teases you, doesn't it? It goes into focus for a second and then disappears again. You know what? I could just direct you to the Bad Squiddo Games website to look at the goddamn pigs. So we've got 8 pigs, we've got 30 chickens, enough for a horde of... Brad says these farm animals they're from Bad Squiddo Games. The chickens are from the Kickstarter. They may be available on the website. Let's have a look now. See if they're up there for just general purchase as well. Bad Squiddo Games. Okay, the shop section. I think they're in Bad Squiddo Scenics. Let's have a look. So clicking on that one. And are they in here? If not, they might be in the animal. Oh yeah, they are in Bad Squiddo Scenics. So that's where the pigs are. Silly Pigs and Piglets, the pack is called for those. And are the chickens in here as well? Let's see. You can also get Pig Topia, which is all the pigs, and you also get lots of piggy-based accessories, which is currently reduced in price as well on the Bad Squiddo Games website, if you're interested in piggies. I think the chickens might only be available through the Kickstarter Pledge Manager at the moment. I'm not sure if they're for sale generally yet. They could well be, actually. Let's see. Let's see if it'll let me add them to a cart. So the price for 10 chickens, just make sure I've got this right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the same chicken pack. Yeah, 10 chickens, £8.50. And I got 3 packs. You can also get, is it called Chicken Topia as well? Let's see. You can get chicken coop and accessories, or the Chicken Topia bundle, which is reduced in price right now as well, which comes with 10 chickens. Does it? Let's just check. I think it comes with all the chickens that I've got there, but it also comes with various nests and eggs and fences and a little chicken coop. So very exciting there. So if you're interested in chickens, Bad Squiddo Games is the place to be, definitely. And I think if you go on the Kickstarter Pledge Manager section, I think you can just buy them directly in the store now. Let's just check. Well, it seems to be letting me proceed with an order for chickens, and I'm not using any of the Kickstarter code, so I presume they're actually for sale now, if that's what you're interested in. Okay, we've got some nice Bad Squiddo promotion there. So, I also use some other Bad Squiddo products. For example, where are my crystals? Don't know where they are right now, but the basing crystals I use for my Abyssal Dwarves are from Bad Squiddo. And I think I'm on my second pack of those at the moment, because obviously I use a lot of them as that army expands way beyond where it started. And even the Grotesque Horde have actually got 3 crystal bits on them. So they're quite greedy for crystals. And you can fit more stuff on a unit when you base it up in the larger style. If you're just putting 2 regiments next to each other, you find that there's not as much space. But when you've got the full horde, you can more accurately jigsaw the miniatures around each other, so there's more space for the decoration on the base as well. You've got more empty space to work with because all the empty space from the 2 regiments is combined, so you can put it all into one spot for a little terrain piece or something, if that makes sense. I'm sure you know what I mean, because when you've got a full regiment of, say, 20 dwarves, if they're all on individual bases, you don't have space to put anything on those bases. But if you just put 20 dwarves on a huge tray together, you can bunch some of them up a bit closer and leave a bit of space for something extra juicy on there. Okay, let's have a look at Mr. Shadow Hulk, because he's dry now. And I think that purple wash has actually sweetened the deal quite a bit here. Looking pretty good. Quite happy with how this has turned out so far. Obviously, a long way to go on this bad boy. And he's still not completely dry, actually. There's a couple of little pools that are still working their way towards Dryville. But they're getting there. And it's going to be a long road finishing this guy. There's lots of detail, most of which I put on there myself. So I've made my own hard work, really. And there's also the detail that's already in the Mantic Giant, which is quite a significant amount anyway. You can see all kinds of shields and stuff on him, arrows poking into his arm. That's all the detail that you already get in there. And then I've added the likes of tentacles, 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 tentacles. Face, 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 face. Yeah, that sums it up, I think. Tentacle, tentacle, face, 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 tentacle, tentacle, face. And it's looking pretty sweet, if you ask me. The next step is going to be to continue with the skin. I'm doing that first because the clothing sticks out a bit beyond the skin. So if I paint the clothing first, I'd probably mess that up while doing the skin. So the skin is going to need more work, because I'm not just going to leave it with the dry brush and the wash. There's going to be more colours applied over it, probably, or dry brushing, or just painted straight on, I'm not sure yet. The faces aren't going to be picked out in a different colour. I'm going to leave them in the same colour as the skin, so it looks like they're just growing out of the skin, or they're underneath the skin, poking their way through to the surface. The tentacles are obviously a different colour, because we need some variety in there. Front of the tentacles, this nice lovely pink colour, so that's going to want some highlighting. And the back of the tentacles in this lovely dark pink colour, which is going to want highlighting as well. The dry brush that's already on there can work as just the highlight on its own, but that was mainly done so I get a better look at all the details when I put the wash on. You can see certain areas are raised, like in Matt Damon's mouth there. You can see the raised parts are a bit white looking. So I've been going 1 hour 24. I'm going to wrap this one up in a minute then. So, pleased with how that's coming along. These guys, I'm going to be continuing their skin tomorrow probably. And actually, I'm not sure. It might not be tomorrow because, of course, it is Monday, isn't it? So Tuesday is, of course, the Andy and Rem show. So I might not work on these tomorrow. It depends, because I do have a couple of other things I need to do tomorrow as well. Just everyday kind of stuff. Well, I call it everyday stuff, but it's not done every day nowadays because of the whole lockdown situation. But there are some things to be done tomorrow. So we'll see if I get time to work on these on the morrow. If not, then obviously you'll be tuning into the Andy and Rem show, which will be sometime around about this time tomorrow. We need to work out the exact time that it's going to be tomorrow. I've already prepared What the Hell Is That, which is a really juicy, spicy segment, and we've got a few scandals to talk about as well in the community, a couple of other things to touch on, and I also came up with a brilliant talking point as well, which I'm going to post in the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group in a minute, asking people for tomorrow to name their favourite Greater Demon miniatures from history and why, whether they prefer the old ones or the new ones. So it's going to be very, very exciting. Brad is still waiting on Basusa the Vile Half-Breed Champ and Genna. Yeah, so the Abyssal Dwarf characters. Very, very nice models. And I think you'll do a good job on those. Your army's looking very nice. It's nice to see more people in the Abyssal Dwarf Club. And it's not even just the Abyssal Dwarf Club, it's also that we're all... There's a group of us, this society of Abyssal Dwarf fanatics, who have very nice lava-themed bases. And there's a few people who have taken the original idea. I don't know who first put lava on Abyssal Dwarf bases, but people have expanded on the idea and taken it in different directions. There's a couple of people who have got really nice kind of fat, bulbous lava, which looks very nice. I've got obviously the flat with the cracked earth over it. People are doing all kinds of different things to push the Abyssal Dwarf lava theme in different directions, and I like where it's going. It's very nice to see. It's also nice to hear that people were inspired by my army as well to go out and get their own Abyssal Dwarfs, which is the reason I wanted to get my Abyssal Dwarf army painted in that style, was because I saw a very nice army out there in the community, which people have probably seen. The originator of, at least the originator as far as I'm concerned, of the Lava Abyssal Dwarfs. And other people have taken it on from there. Some of them better painters than me, and I'm sure that over the years we're going to see some really top-notch stuff, because those miniatures are definitely going to stand the test of time, the new Abyssal Dwarf stuff. Very, very nice indeed. Grotesques, the Hellfane, the new Infantry, which I've got lying around here somewhere, but I haven't built those yet because I'm onto the Nighstalkers, because I've got enough Abyssal Dwarves already, god damn it. But I'll get to them eventually. So, what else do I want to mention? So, tomorrow, tune in for the Andy and Rem show, of course. It'll be very exciting. Even if you're not a big fan of Age of Sigmar, we barely touch on Age of Sigmar sometimes on the show. It's just some nice, silly business, but also some hard-hitting, investigative wargaming journalism at its finest. Down in the trenches, getting our hands dirty, nose to the ground, and ear to the ground as well. But the nose to the ground can also be helpful, but it might be better to the grindstone, the nose. The ear to the ground is the recommended method. Okay, so wrapping this one up now. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description. Got my Facebook group down there, Twitter and all that good stuff, and also various fundraising sources for people to throw money at me on a one-off or monthly basis. And of course, everyone would want to do that if they want to support the red hot, juicy, sizzling, spicy, mouth-watering content that flows out of this channel on a daily basis, directly into your face. And you're enjoying it, I'm sure. Also, don't forget to like the video if you haven't already. I can see 5 likes on this so far, which is half the number of viewers. So half of you are sitting there and haven't liked the video, which I think personally is an outrage. It doesn't tell me who it is, so I can't strike any vengeful attacks on any of you. But you know who you are, and you'll have to live with that shame for the rest of your lives. So, with that, I think all that remains to be said is... In fact, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to have... Let's see, one of the butchers can say it tonight. Let's enlarge this camera here. And get the butcher right up there. Does this one like focusing on things? That camera's terrible. You know what? I'm just turning that camera off right now. This one will do. Come on, Mr. Butcher. There we go. Look at that sweet focus. Okay, here we go. Good night out there, whatever you are.